Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and this is NB12 for Tuesday, November 6, 2012, broadcasting from the Cable 12 studios on Robinson Road. In news tonight, the Prime Minister says he will not be releasing a report made by UK-based consultants on the upcoming referendum. A bishop calls for the immediate closure of web shops in the run-up to the referendum. Relief is on the way for victims of Hurricane Sandy. Lynden Pindling International Airport, the site of an emergency simulation. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs weighs in on the United States presidential elections. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Your NB12 starts right now. Thanks for joining us. Despite repeated calls for him to make public recommendations submitted to government by UK consultants, Prime Minister Christie says he has no intention of doing so. After visiting the Bahamas to meet with government officials and other stakeholders in the gaming industry, consultants advised government on how to proceed with the gambling referendum scheduled for December 3rd. The Prime Minister instead suggested that reporters speak with consultants to get their views. Vonique Toot reports.
Following his recent communication to Parliament on the gambling referendum, both F&M leader Dr. Hubert Minnis and former PLP MP Philip Galanis have called on Prime Minister Christie to release a report submitted to government by UK-based consultants. However, Mr. Christie told reporters today there is no report to release.
What report? Yeah, what report? No, the government has a continuing relationship with gaming consultants on all matters to do with that. It is never a specific report. It's continuing matters where discussions are made, etc. So there's no physical report. There are 3 or 4 pages of advice that you get from time to time. I don't understand the question of whether there's a report to be released. Reports, they're like 5, 6, 7 different letters to us. There's no report. The only report that has been done is a mammoth report done by the Bahamas Hotel Association, and where they're making changes, recommendations for changes in the gaming laws.
Government officials engaged UK consultants to advise them on how to proceed with the referendum. We asked the Prime Minister if he intends to release those pages he received.
Why would I want to do that? We for years and years and years we've been receiving advice as to casinos and changing casinos. So, what is the relevance of that? I'm hiding something on it? There's nothing I'm saying. If we can arrange for these same people to come out and sit before you and answer any questions you'd wish to have answered.
Can we do that?
Certainly, I can make that available to them so they could give you the benefit of their views. There's no problem about things like that.
Our news team contacted Dixon, Wilson & Co. to find out what those recommendations were. However, officials say they would have to receive authorization from government first. It was those consultants who persuaded government to exclude the question on the establishment of a national lottery. Mr. Christie says they were concerned that such a lottery would not be feasible in the Bahamas. This means a referendum that was expected to address the controversial issue of gambling in the Bahamas will only address one aspect of it: web shops. Mr. Christie expressed regret that a national lottery will not be included, even though it was promised in the Progressive Liberal Party's Charter for Governance. On page 22, the party promised to provide details for a referendum on a national lottery and gambling in the Bahamas within its first 100 days.
I've sort of been wrestling with that ever since, because in the speech from the throne, I actually put that in the speech from the throne. In the budget communication that followed immediately after the election, I put that in the budget communication. And so maybe some people are concerned and confused as to why it is not there. And so it's a matter that we're going to make the right decisions.
As for concerns over why casino gambling will not be included, Mr. Christie says as far as he knows, only one web shop operator expressed disappointment over that. Though he wants voters to have all the facts before next month's referendum, Prime Minister Christie says government does not intend to hold any town meetings. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
Well, the Bahamas has the potential to generate billions of dollars in revenue with the introduction of a national lottery, but the industry must be one that is transparent and compliant. C.S. Adderley has more in tonight's Business Matters segment.
The referendum date may have been set, but according to some experts, the government could be getting it all wrong and should, in fact, be considering a national lottery.
My fear is that you are about to legalize, as it were, or give, as it were, law to something that ought not to have been in the first place. People can't be allowed to run their own rackets, as it were. And I sense that the government, rather than go the way of legalizing the web operators, should be moving to, as it were, introduce a national lottery. Of course, the web operators could be very much part of the national lottery, because if they are taking bets now for other kinds of games, they will be permitted to take bets for the lottery by putting a terminal. But they would not have ultimate control over the terminal. They can't fix the numbers. They can't fix the games. All of that will be fixed.
Lee Singh believes the country's gaming sector, including the national lottery, has the ability to generate billions of dollars annually, counting not only current players but also those who are likely to play with the cleansing of the game. He says the key factors the government must consider are transparency and compliance.
If you have one game, if you have 20 terminals, I suspect with the 20 plus islands, you would probably get up to about 600 terminals. And so you will need compliance officers to be able to look at what is going on in each jurisdiction, in each island, to ensure that things work according to the letter of the law.
Between 2010 and 2012, the National Lottery in Trinidad and Tobago reportedly generated $5 billion in local currency, and the highest contributing game is an online-based traditional numbers game. Jerry Butler, principal for J.C. Butler & Co., also agrees that the government should be managing a national lottery that properly dictates and states who the winners are, and that the revenue collected from the games is used to develop the country through various sectors like healthcare, education, sports, and the diversification of the economy. In the meantime, Butler is urging the government to ensure that Bahamians will have an opportunity to play a major role in the ownership of the country's gaming industry.
It always interests me when I'm in a place like, say, Trinidad and Tobago, or even in Turks and Caicos, where you meet people, even in Barbados, who are Barbadians operating casinos in Barbados. They're no smarter than I am, and they have no more accounting or financial experience than I am. But they are licensed to operate casinos. They're licensed to operate quote-unquote numbers games, etc., even mini lotteries. And I find the discriminatory nature of our system has nothing to do. I don't really want the right to gamble. I don't care about the right to gamble, because I could gamble anyway. What I care about is the right to own the gambling business. If you know anything about the gambling business, if you want to be a consistent winner in the gambling business, you better own the house.
The Progressive Liberal Party had originally promised to also have a referendum question for Bahamians to vote on a national lottery. However, on December 3rd, voters will only be asked the question, do you support the legalization and regulation of web shops? If successful, the Gaming Board would serve as the regulatory agency for the legal web shops. For Business Matters, I'm C.S. Adderley.
Meantime, a church leader is calling for the immediate closure of all web shops and numbers houses until the December 3rd referendum. Bishop Walter Hanschel of Great Commission Ministries tells NB12 that government and the police force should not continue to turn a blind eye to illegal business of web shops as long as they are still considered illegal under Bahamian law.
The government should close down every gambling house rather than legalizing them. It's already illegal. How could it's illegal and they're not even discussing it. They allow it to remain open as though it's legal. Shut them down. Then do the referendum. And after the referendum, and we know that referendum will be defeated because the Bahamian people will vote no. After that is done, we are asking the Prime Minister to shut down every gambling house as he said he would. We're going to hold him to his word.
Bishop Hanschel says gambling is one of the many social ills in the country, and addiction is just one of the consequences that will come with gambling.
We have thousands of people who are addicted to gambling, but they wouldn't admit it. They are gambling addicts, and gambling breeds crime because it originates from greed, from the love of money. People don't want to work any longer. They want to just get slack money, gambling, and we need to wipe this out.
Come December 3rd, Bishop Hanschel says he is convinced the Bahamian people will vote no, and here's why.
We don't support gambling, and we never will, and we encourage persons not to vote in favor of that referendum, vote no on that referendum, because what is happening is gambling, as we all know, is a social ill. Gambling is where you're depending on luck. You don't need no luck. When you're depending on luck, you're not trusting in God. Gambling is an enemy of God. This country need to turn back to God. This is affecting my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and I'm going to fight if we have to fight this alone. But we know we are not alone in this battle because there are thousands who do not support legalized gambling.
Bahamians who voted in the last general election will be able to vote in the upcoming referendum. Those who have not registered to vote will have up to 10 days before the December 3rd vote to register.